Hello, this is Spencer from Metal Requisance, here with Alia O'Brien from Blood Ceremony. First of all, I just want to ask, how are you? With the new album coming out, the European tour coming up soon.
Feeling pretty good, yeah. We're really excited that this album's gonna finally see the light of day, and yeah, it's nice to have a short but sweet tour on the horizon almost immediately following the album release. So yeah, things are looking up.
Nice, cool. So I'm going to go back into the beginnings of the band. I read that there was a different singer initially, and then you were brought on to play flute, but then the singer left to India, and then you took over.
That's the story.
Could you give me an idea of like the early days of the band before the first album?
Yeah, I mean, it's all so hazy now, but I mean, essentially, Sean started the band, right? I think he envisioned sort of an old school sounding heavy rock band. Initially, I was brought on, I believe, maybe just to play flute on like one or two songs. So I wasn't going to be a full-time member. But, and in fact, if I'm recalling correctly, and I might not be, I also brought I play organ as well, obviously. And at the time, I think I was playing, it was a Farfisa VIP 202, like a really, really killer Italian combo organ. And I think I brought that to practice one day too. So I contributed some flute, some organ, and I think it just became apparent by the end of that practice that, maybe I'd just be incorporated into the band proper. So I think that was also a point where the sound changed. Once you add instruments like flute and organ, things are going to start sounding different, and also, the instrumentation of a band impacts how songs are written too. So I think that's sort of when we took off in a bit of a different direction. And then, when Stephanie, the first singer, went to India, there was sort of talk of what, we were trying to decide who would sing. I guess it was me.
Picked up the reins.
Yeah, but I'd never sang I wasn't a singer. I'd never sang for a band before. I definitely had no sort of natural inclinations toward being a front person. So it was I was kind of thrust into that position and had to figure it out,
Yeah.
as I went along.
That's cool. And the music of Blood Ceremony is obviously, really spiritual. Is that a reflection of your beliefs, or is it just, theatrics?
Sure. I love theatricality. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, and I would say probably for the majority of the band members, I don't want to speak for all of them. It's not a reflection of strongly held beliefs, but certainly a reflection of genuine interest in the subject matter. I go to school for ethnomusicology, and I study, the sounds of religion, and in particular, mysticism, Islamic mysticism, or I focus on that anyway a bit. And so I am quite taken with sort of the mysterious, the unknown. It's why I also love horror, and these themes are omnipresent in our music, in the lyrical content. Sean writes the lyrics, but I think this is a shared interest in sort of the mysterious and the unknown and the dreadful and the murky. So I think that interest is genuine, but I wouldn't say that it comes out of like a fixed set of beliefs or practices.
Yeah. That makes sense. And that kind of goes into the next question I was going to ask is, I saw in an interview that you do study ethnomusicology, and you kind of answered this, but how has it influenced, the music of Blood Ceremony?
Yeah, I mean, there might be some sort of deep-rooted connection between my work in Blood Ceremony and my studies in school, but I think, for me, they're pretty separate worlds, to be honest, although occasionally I'm actually in a couple of weeks giving a lecture on heavy metal for one of the classes I'm teaching. So, there is crossover in that sense. But I think, in terms of sort of my studies influencing, Blood Ceremony is a very, separate thing for me. In fact, it's a bit of a foil to my research in a way. It allows me to think about things and engage with music in a way that I'm not really doing in my research or in my writing. So yeah, it's almost a bit of an escape for me, which is kind of appropriate because our lyrics are like, are quite fantastical, and they're little worlds unto themselves. They are, our songs can be escapist in a sense, so it makes sense then that I also use them to escape.
That works pretty well. Now, on the new record, what was the direction you took with this album, compared to the other albums?
I guess I felt like there was a lot of continuity. There's been a lot of continuity from album to album, but I feel like this album kind of picks up where the Eldritch Dark and our single Let It Come Down left off. Keeping in line with that sort of old school production, keeping things analog. And this album, like the Eldritch Dark and like Let It Come Down, I feel like we're really, there's a lot of very focused songwriting happening. A lot of shorter songs, a lot of, pop and folk songs mixed in with the, heavier riffing songs. So, I think, like, we were really happy with the Eldritch Dark and sort of the dynamics therein.
That's my favorite album of 2013, actually. I love that album so much. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, we like sort of how, like, the flow of the album and the variety, and, like, we were very pleased with how it turned out. So I think we just wanted to do more of the same, have a variety of musical offerings that people could pick and choose. And, I mean, we all collect records, all four of us in the band. So for us, like, song order is really important because we are people that listen to albums from start to finish. I know not everyone. I mean, sometimes I'll put on single songs on, like, my iPhone when I'm walking to work or whatever. But generally speaking, we wanted the album to be a sort of a meandering experience unto itself. So, it's nice to have some variety and put like a sort of down tempo, creepy folk song after sort of fast-paced, heavy riffing song. So, contrast.
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to it. I'm going to review it like next week, and it's definitely along the same lines as the other albums, but it does its own thing a little bit too. Yeah, there is a lot of variety.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think recording with Liam Watson sort of gives it its own character for sure, because he has a very particular style of recording and sound that he gets, and he has his own sensibilities that shaped the tone of the album.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. And what do you think about this sort of retro occult doom scene that, we've seen a lot of? There's been so many bands, like a huge proliferation of them in the past few years, and you guys have been around since like the early days of this.
Yeah, we've been around, I think it's our 10th or 11th year now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We've been a band, which is hard to believe. Hard to imagine life without Blood Ceremony at this point, basically. I've been in it like my whole adult life. It's cool. It's really weird and it's really cool, because I don't think when we started out, we definitely, like, there was no one doing what we were doing really, like, in Toronto. So we were kind of like a musical black sheep on the local music scene. There are obviously lots of people doing similar things around the world. I think in the early days of the band, I think after the first album was released, I can't remember for the life of me what magazine it was, but they released an article about us, Jexoth, and the Devil's Blood, and that's when the three of our bands started getting lumped together, because we don't sound a terrible amount alike, but I think that article sort of lumped us together, and so it went. But it's funny because it's gone from a handful of bands to just like a swath of bands all doing really cool stuff. And I feel like a lot of the bands, I mean, I try to listen to as many as possible, but it's just like really hard to keep track at this point. But every band I've listened to has their own take on, heavy rock from the 60s, 70s, psycho 70s. I think it's really cool, personally, that there's an appetite for this kind of music, so much so that, like, the scene can sort of there's room for that many bands, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy
And
how many bands have come up. New ones every day.
Seriously, yeah, it's very interesting. I guess no one could have predicted it.
Yeah. And what are some of your non-musical inspirations for Blood Ceremony? Because I actually remember looking up some of the lyrics to Hand to Pan and coming across some text from like Aleister Crowley. There's probably like a lot of those kind of little references and stuff throughout.
Yeah, that'd be a good question. Sean is a real bibliophile, and he draws information from all sorts of. He collects really, really sort of rare antiquarian books, and draws a lot of influence from these words. I know that he was Flower Phantoms, for example, is based on a book published in 1926 by Ronald Fraser. Written by Ronald Fraser, published in 1926. That's one sort of. I mean, that's like an example, but sort of weird fiction, classic horror, like Hammer horror, that sort of thing. These are sort of the aesthetic worlds in which we live and from which we draw inspiration.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean like a hodgepodge of different things.
Various sort of, omnipresent sort of like mythologies that like we might encounter the day to day, can sort of provide a spark or an idea or, any of these sorts of things. Yeah. But generally speaking, our songs are usually small stories, and so these stories often come from somewhere.
Yeah, that's cool. So I'm a big fan of the song Alvarado, and particularly the last bit where there's that like really cool organ riff. It's like
oh yeah,
that's like one of my favorite
style.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite riffs of all time. Do you have like a story behind the making of that particular song?
Oh man, it's so funny how it all like the Lord of Misrule is so fresh in my mind, but it's hard to remember sort of earlier songwriting endeavors. I mean, that's a song that Sean wrote. That was on Living with the Ancients. And, it's one of those songs that, like, we recorded, and then we started to play live, and it took on a sort of different shape once we started playing it live. I think it got a little bit faster. We started getting a little bit wilder on that sort of that last part that you're talking about with the goblin style keyboard and guitar lick. And yeah, I don't know. It's one of my favorite songs to play live. That's for sure. It's great because it's also, again, it's a story that I get to tell about this like amazing figure. And I usually do. I have this little introductory spiel that that's basically a performance unto itself at this point that I use almost every time to introduce it. That like I really love too. So yeah,
that's cool.
Oliver Haddo, great person. We loved him so much that we wrote another song about him, The Magician.
yeah.
In which I get to sing as Oliver Haddo, so I get to embody the character, finally, of Oliver Haddo.
That's cool.
So,
are any of the songs on the new album about him?
No. We were like, okay, Haddo's had his time. We did like Haddo and The Return of Haddo, and that's enough Haddo. Maybe we'll come back eventually, but, I don't know. We like to do that sometimes. So, we wrote a couple of songs about Pan. Sometimes it's fun to have, like, themes bleed over from one album to another. Just, we are what we are.
Nice. And one last question. So you guys are doing a European tour, but when are you going to tour America again?
This is a question everyone's asking. We don't have anything lined up, but we really want to get down there. So I think it depends on what opportunities come our way, basically.
Okay.
Sometimes it's great to go down to the States supporting, a big band. That can be, we've done that. That's what we've done twice before. We supported Ghost, and then we also supported Kylesa, and those are both really great experiences. Yeah, or sort of working it around festivals. We have to see. But like touring America has been one of the more memorable experiences in my life. It's so, driving from coast to coast is just, there's nothing really compares to that. So, yeah, hopefully soon is the answer.
Nice.
My ambiguous answer.
Yeah, because it seems like I've seen all of my favorite bands except you guys. So I'm really looking forward to that whenever
we'll try to remedy that.
Nice. But, yeah, that's all the questions I got.
Right on.
Yeah, but really interesting stuff you got there. Yeah. And, yeah, I've been listening to the album over the past few days, and, yeah, It's good. I like it. I really do.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it's, it's a weird one, but we're happy with it.